can you explain the FDA's process for opioid approval and sort of in reference to your study, where you see it falling short?
Well, the FDA plays a very important role in regulating all prescription drugs, including prescription opioids. And when manufacturers want to get a new product approved for the market, they have to prepare a detailed and, in most cases, comprehensive packet of information that includes many, many different types of tests and studies and data points that the FDA then carefully reviews. And we were interested in examining the key evidence base that the FDA used underlying the approval of opioids over a more than 20-year period. And so to examine this, we carefully reviewed documents that are in the public domain, but not necessarily easy to find or easy to evaluate. In other words, these are FDA reviews that are publicly available, but all too often individuals may not be aware of the reviews, and the information in them has to be carefully compiled and analyzed, and that's what we did.
You talk about sort of the next steps that the FDA can take to sort of bridge this gap. Can you just speak further of what that can be, what that can look like?
Well, the FDA plays a very important role in this process, and I think on balance, on the whole, the FDA gets a lot more right than they've gotten wrong. So I do think that the FDA deserves credit for many of the steps that they have undertaken to try to improve the safe use of opioids. On the other hand, our analysis also identifies shortcomings of the process that the FDA has used to evaluate these products reaching market. For example, the FDA has historically relied upon a clinical trial design that's an enriched trial design. It's called Enhanced Enrichment Randomized Withdrawal. And essentially, it excludes from the ultimate clinical trial individuals who can't tolerate a product or who don't get any effectiveness or efficacy from it. In other words, individuals in whom the product doesn't work. And so this design, this enriched design, it's turned out has been one that the FDA has relied upon for approving many opioids that have been labeled for chronic pain. And the trial design is fundamentally flawed. It essentially stacks the deck in favor of finding that a product is safe and effective, when that may very well not be the case, because it throws out as much as a third of individuals before the trial even starts, because they either don't find the product safe or they don't find it effective. So that's a very easy, low-hanging fruit, and the FDA should have abandoned that trial design a long time ago. But the FDA also should be requiring manufacturers to more carefully and comprehensively and systematically gather information on potential adverse events. These are often collected in an open-ended, spontaneous reporting fashion, almost invariably. In other words, if individuals experience an adverse event, the study sponsors will want to know about it and gather information about it. But for important safety events, the FDA should not be relying upon this sort of spontaneous open-ended reporting. Manufacturers should be required to systematically and comprehensively evaluate and gather information on these important safety outcomes. And we find that all too often during the past 2 decades for these 48 applications, manufacturers and the FDA failed to collect this information.
What do you think a clinician should be aware of, especially when it comes to potentially prescribing opioids in patients?
Well, you know, I think clinicians are working hard every day to try to do right by their patients. And I have a clinical practice. I'm an active general internist. And I can tell you that when I was in training, we were routinely taught that one need not worry a lot about the addictive potential of opioids as long as one was treating organic pain. And nothing could have been further from the truth. And I was part of a whole generation of professionals that was taught this. And I think that there are many myths that have allowed the opioid epidemic to propagate. And one of them is that there's somehow a conflict between reducing our over-reliance on opioids on the one hand and improving quality of care for people in pain on the other. This is a false dilemma. There's no tension between doing both simultaneously. And so I think clinicians, I think we just need to be sure that clinicians have the information that they need to make well-informed scientific judgments about these products, and that there are many tools in the toolbox, and all too often we've reached for opioids at the expense of safer, more effective alternatives. And so fortunately, I think that we're now in the middle of a sea change in the way that pain is managed. And individuals with pain, of which there are tens of millions in the United States, need not suffer as a consequence. We can do right by them and improve the quality of care while reducing our over-reliance on opioids.